The lawyer's office smelled like old books and lemon furniture polish. I sat in a leather chair that squeaked every time I moved, staring at Mr. Henderson as he slid a folder across his mahogany desk. "Miss Brennan, your great-uncle Theodore left you his entire estate," he said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. 1,200 acres in Pine Valley, including the main house, 3 rental properties, and considerable timber rights. I blinked. "I'm sorry, did you say 1,200 acres?" "I did indeed." I'd met Uncle Theo exactly twice in my life. Once at a family reunion when I was 7, and again at my mother's funeral 5 years ago. He was a quiet man who smelled like pipe tobacco and told stories about the land his grandfather had homesteaded in 1889. I never imagined he'd leave it all to me. "There's one complication," Mr. Henderson continued, his expression darkening. "About 15 years ago, a developer bought the adjacent property and built Pine Valley Estates. They established an HOA. Over the years, they've been—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Encroaching on your great-uncle's land." "Encroaching how?" "They built a community center, a playground, extended several driveways, and planted what they call a community garden, all on property that legally belongs to you. Your uncle was elderly and didn't have the energy to fight them. He documented everything, though." Mr. Henderson tapped the folder. "It's all in here." 2 weeks later, I stood on my newly inherited front porch, watching a woman in white capri pants and a visor march across my meadow like she owned it. Behind her trailed 2 other women, all wearing matching Pine Valley Estates polo shirts. I walked down to meet them, my boots crunching through the tall grass. "Excuse me," I called out. "Can I help you?" The woman in front stopped, her hand flying to her chest in exaggerated surprise. "Oh, you must be the niece. I'm Patricia Holbrook, HOA president. We heard Theodore passed. So sorry for your loss." Her tone suggested she was sorry about nothing. "Thank you. I'm Emma Brennan." "Well, Emma, we need to discuss your property maintenance. This field is an eyesore. Our bylaws require all grass to be maintained at no more than 4 inches. This is easily 12 inches. I looked around at the wildflower meadow that had probably existed since before her subdivision was even conceived. "Your bylaws don't apply to my property. I'm not part of your HOA. Patricia's smile tightened. "Actually, sweetie, you'll find that Pine Valley Estates has an agreement with this property. Theodore understood the importance of community standards." "Show me the agreement." "Well, I don't have it with me, but—" "Then we're done here. This is private property, and you're trespassing." One of the other women gasped. Patricia's face flushed red. "Trespassing? Our community center is right over there." She pointed to a modern building sitting squarely in what my property survey showed was my land. "I'm aware. We'll be discussing that very soon." The next morning, I found a citation tucked into my door. "Violation notice" was printed in aggressive red letters across the top. Below, someone had itemized a dozen supposed infractions: unmowed grass, peeling paint on the barn, unauthorized livestock, Uncle Theo's 3 horses, and my personal favorite, failure to submit architectural plans for exterior structures. I photographed it and sent it to my lawyer. His response came within an hour. "Do not respond. Do not engage. I'm handling this." But Pine Valley Estates had other plans. That afternoon, I discovered orange spray paint on my fence posts, marking a property line that cut through my land, conveniently placing their community center, playground, and half their community garden on their side. I was photographing the vandalism when a truck pulled up. A man in his 60s climbed out, wearing a contractor's vest and a grim expression. "You Emma Brennan?" he asked. "I am." "Jim Morrison. I'm the one who built most of Pine Valley Estates." He looked uncomfortable. "I need to tell you something. When Patricia and her crew wanted to expand their amenities, I told them they needed to buy the land from your uncle or get proper easements. She said Theodore had given verbal permission. I told her verbal doesn't mean squat legally, but she insisted. Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's been eating at me. Your uncle was a good man. He came to me once, maybe 3 years ago, confused about why people were building on his land. He was already getting frail. I told him to get a lawyer, But I don't think he ever did. Patricia counted on that. He shook his head. I'm not working for them anymore. But I wanted you to know the truth. That woman will bury you in paperwork and intimidation if she can. She can try. She did more than try. Over next week, I received 17 violation notices, a letter threatening legal action for disturbing the peace. I've been using a chainsaw to clear fallen trees, and a formal demand that I pay $45,000 in accumulated HOA dues dating back 15 years. Then they made their biggest mistake. I came home from town to find a contractor's truck parked on my property and two men digging post holes along what they'd marked as their property line. Stop. I shouted, running toward them. What are you doing? One of them looked up confused. Installing a fence. HOA hired us. On my property. Without my permission. Lady, we just do what we're paid to do. You got a problem? Take it up with them. I pulled out my phone and called the sheriff's office. Then I started recording. Patricia arrived 20 minutes later, just as the deputy was taking statements. She emerged from a Mercedes like a general entering battle. Deputy, thank goodness you're here. This woman is harassing our contractors. Deputy Martinez looked tired. Ma'am, are you Patricia Holbrook? I am. These contractors are installing a fence on property that belongs to Miss Brennan. That's trespassing and destruction of property. According to whose survey? According to the county recorder's office, which I just called. He showed her something on his tablet. The property line is 60 feet that way. Your community center, your playground, and most of your garden are on Miss Brennan's land. Have been for years. Patricia's face went through several shades of red. That's impossible. We've been using this land for over a decade. We have rights. Adverse possession requires 20 years in this state, ma'am, and only if the use is without the owner's permission and the owner doesn't object. Miss Brennan is objecting. This is ridiculous. Patricia turned to me, her voice shaking with fury. You can't just come in here and destroy our community. We've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in improvements. On someone else's property, I said quietly, without permission, without payment. You gambled that my uncle wouldn't fight back, and you were right. But I'm not my uncle. The next HOA meeting was standing room only. I wasn't invited, but Jim Morrison was, and he recorded the whole thing for me. Patricia stood at the front, her usual confidence cracking. We are facing an unfortunate situation. The new owner of the adjacent property is making unreasonable demands about land usage. We may need to assess each household $15,000 to cover legal fees and potential relocation costs for our amenities. The room erupted. People shouted questions, demanded answers, accused the board of incompetence. One man stood up and read from his phone. I've been researching this. Patricia, you've been president for 16 years. You oversaw all these construction projects. Did you or did you not obtain proper legal rights to the land? Patricia's silence was damning. I want to know why we're paying for your mistakes, someone else called out. The meeting dissolved into chaos. 2 days later, Patricia appeared on my porch alone. No entourage, no polo shirt, no visor. She looked like she'd aged 10 years. I want to negotiate, she said. I invited her in and made coffee. We sat at Uncle Theo's old kitchen table. I made mistakes, she began, the words clearly painful. I assumed Theodore wouldn't object. I assumed verbal permission was enough. I assumed the land would eventually just become ours. Somehow, I was wrong. Yes, the HOA doesn't have the money to move everything. If we try, we'll have to levy huge assessments. People will lose their homes. Families will be destroyed. I sipped my coffee, waiting. What do you want? She asked finally. What I want is an acknowledgement that you spent 15 years stealing from my uncle, that you built on his property without permission, marked it as yours, and tried to intimidate me into accepting it. She nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. What I'll accept, I continued, is a formal easement agreement. You can keep your community center and playground where they are, but the HOA will pay me fair market rent, backdated 5 years. And you'll restore the property line markers to their correct locations. And you'll resign as president. That's generous. That's what it is. I could force you to demolish everything and restore my land. I could sue for damages. Instead, I'm offering you a way out that doesn't destroy your community. Patricia was crying openly now. Why? Because despite what you did, those families in your subdivision didn't do anything wrong. They trusted you. And because my Uncle Theo wouldn't have wanted to hurt innocent people, even if he should have fought back against you. 3 months later, I watched children playing on a playground that was technically still on my land, but now properly leased to Pine Valley Estates. Patricia had resigned. The new HOA president, Jim Morrison's wife Susan, had apologized formally and publicly for the previous board's actions. The rent money had allowed me to restore Uncle Theo's house and barn. The horses were thriving. I'd started learning about sustainable forestry for the timber acreage. My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer. County Recorder's Office just filed the easement. It's official. Well done. I sat on the porch, looking at over 1,200 acres of land that my great-great-grandfather had homesteaded, that Uncle Theo had protected as best he could, and that was now fully, legally, undeniably mine. Sometimes being polite means standing your ground. Sometimes it means knowing exactly when to stop being nice and start being honest. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it means finding a solution where dignity gets restored and community survive. I raised my coffee mug toward the sky. This one's for you, Uncle Theo. The meadow grass swayed in the breeze, 12 inches tall and perfect,